I was walking the dog.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, before we get into that, Ken, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the Mick and Pat show. I'm Mick.
Mm-hmm. And I'm Pat.
There we go. You gotta introduce yourself. But thanks for joining us again another week. I was very flattered. Someone in our little training group, they reached out to me. Or they didn't reach out to me, just in the group and as a whole, they're like, I'm catching up and going through the backlog, learning the lore.
Oh, really?
I was like, wow. And they're like, I'm on this episode. I was like, it's a good episode. And then with everything, there's been a lot of talks about Israel-Palestine stuff lately in a lot of our circles. Just wondering like what Trump's going to do. And like there's, Hamas is saying Israel's got to abide by the ceasefire before we release our hostages. Trump, of course, said the thing about, U.S. intervention in Gaza. And I'm not going to put words in his mouth because I've seen mixed things. I haven't seen him saying the U.S. is going to annex Gaza and own Gaza. I haven't seen that quote. I've heard people saying that's what he said. Everything I've seen was like talking about like essentially going in, providing aid relief, rebuilding buildings, and then also kind of policing Gaza to keep Hamas from doing something to destabilize the ceasefire.
And they are working to relocate a lot of people, like millions.
There is a lot of, relocation and like the pressure of like Egypt and Lebanon need to accept, what is it? Ethnically cleanse is the word they're using.
Really?
Yeah, that's the word that you use when you are of an ethnicity and your nation has been dissolved.
And that's what they're.
Isn't that weird?
Saying.
Ethnically cleansed sounds like such a awful term for genocide, but technically I guess it's like the appropriate term for if you are from somewhere that no longer exists and you need to immigrate to a new nation. Which is ironic because that's also the language they used for all of the original Jews that were migrated, like moved into Israel back in the 40s.
Right.
That they were ethnically cleansed from Europe. Because they had to, like, their original homes and nations were gone. So they had to become a new people and became Israel again. Which is just, I don't know. Maybe we bleep out that because I think a lot of YouTube is going to just think we're anti-Semitic or say that word.
Right.
But that's the proper term.
Yeah.
Which I was really surprised because that's the term in a lot of government documents too right now that are going out of the DOD to like saying like, hey, like, ethnically cleansed migrants, you have to accept this many, or like, we want Lebanon to accept this many, stuff like that. But I don't know. You're of course our expert with the people on the ground. Do you know, is Trump saying stuff of like owning Gaza, or I know there's the talk about rebuilding buildings and damaging infrastructure.
I think that, and I haven't been following it that closely, so I haven't dug into a lot of extra stuff besides what's kind of been coming through the feeds and stuff, but it's pretty to say. I mean, what Trump is proposing is something that will, I mean, it'll really mean that Gaza is never the same again. Now,
help me understand this. Break it down for the layman.
Meaning, in, over the last, even 20 years, there's been flare-ups between Gaza and Israel and wars. But Palestinians in Gaza have maintained their sovereignty is not really the right word for it, but they've maintained they've continued to live there. They've had their own culture there. That is where they consider their homeland to be, as they've had, they've been there for generations upon generations at this point. And so this is a new and different precedent for, really relocating this many people out again. And it's not the first time this type of thing has happened in Israel to Palestinians, but it is, in Gaza specifically right now, it's going to be, we're talking like millions of people like getting put somewhere else. And so
displaced. Yeah.
And if we're talking the numbers in the millions, similar to like how lots of people talked about, in America, we've said over the last 4 years, we've had millions of, undocumented
16 million
people
to
come
20
in.
million.
Right.
Over the last 4 years.
A lot of people. And then now let's take this like on how much tinier these like countries are.
Mm-hmm.
Like land, even just land mass and capability wise, that are being asked to take on millions of people. It's like, that, I mean, I don't even know what the population of Jordan is. Let's see for population of Jordan, but I know Jordan's been asked to take, I think 2 million. I'm not sure the exact numbers. I need to look at that, but I do know while I was looking at it, they were using the word millions, and it was like, okay, that is a huge undertaking, and that means these people don't get to be in their homeland anymore. So Jordan population 11.3 million in Jordan. So, bringing on even 1 million, that's a pretty big swing on your population. And I need to double check how many people are actually being asked to go there, in case I'm just completely off base. But it's just that's even a bigger deal than 16 million coming into America. Like for that many people to come into this small, proportionally this small of a population, this small of a landmass. And so Trump's words have been pretty upsetting to a lot of people, because it is kind of like, the same way he's talked about. It's kind of the same like flippancy as talking about making Canada the next state or taking over Greenland, like as if it's up to one person and one person alone, him. And that's like, I think that's the piece too, that like that his attitude in some of those ways is what really rubs people the wrong way, where it's like he just comes out and says something like that, and as if it's just he's going to decide if he's going to do it or not. Yeah. And that's going to be the way it is, like freaking like Pharaoh, like shall it be written, so shall it be done,
Yeah, I mean, it definitely keeps people guessing, I think.
Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, well, I was curious what if you had, was there, you were saying that some of the guys in the group have been talking about the Palestinian-Israeli issues. Was that in relation to any of to our podcast about that, or was that also just in general they're talking about it and you were wondering what they're talking about it? And then there's a lot of, I will say this, there was a lot of misconceptions about the situation for sure. Mm-hmm. So I pointed them to our 2 Israel-Palestine episodes to get some like context and just stuff like that. But yeah, it is interesting, because correct me if I'm wrong right here, because I know the Palestinian claim is, this is our land, this is our home, and you're occupying it, right? Mm-hmm. But isn't it historically pretty much known throughout, not only like biblical history, but also like archaeological history, as well as like history using like Quran and other references of geographical history, like really the Jews, Israelites were really there in that region well before quote unquote Palestinians. Right. Well, in some ways, yes, but in lots of many other ways, no. And that's why it's so messy, which would be the, even like the word, like now this title was adopted later by Romans, but like the Philistines were there before the Israelites.
They were, yeah.
The Canaanites, the Amorites, right? And so there was people there before they came and took it. And then Israel lived there for not that long on the time scale, where historians would say that like Jericho, some historians say that Jericho was a 10,000-year-old city, which is, pretty crazy. Like, and so if we're talking about those type of numbers and those type of people groups there, and then Israelites come in, get established after leaving Egypt, and then they even while Israel had control over the land, they still fought over it. Like the whole time they were there, their own nation split into, Judah in the north, Israel in the south, and then they had and then by the time like Jesus comes around 2,000 years ago, they were already an occupied state.
Yeah.
They'd already been taken over by Rome at that point, or being occupied by Rome. And then shortly after that, 70 years later, they're basically, the diaspora happens. Jews head north, and kind of they head everywhere out of there, and really kind of leave that area for the next 2,000 years. And even during that 2,000 years, there were Jews there who maintained in that area. But then we have the Crusades pop up. We have Christians and Muslims fighting over the land for, 3 Crusades worth of time. And so, and then fast forward another 1,000 years, and we have World War II, a Zionism movement just before that ramps up. And then you have, now, like you were saying, these people, and now after World War II, we need a place to establish them. And Israel and the Jews Zionist movement had already been moving towards reestablishing their claim to the land, for the historical land of Israel before World War II. But that really gave that movement, jet fuel to make it happen, with having support from many nations. And so, yes, the Jews were there before other people, but then other people were there before them. The hard part is, if you really take the amount, and this, it's hard because this is going to make me sound anti-Semitic to a lot of people, right? Right. So I'm kind of giving what I'm doing here is I'm trying to give
context,
our context, and our audience, who would probably more typically be just wholeheartedly pro-Israel without even any knowledge behind it. I'm trying to give here's what's going on here, because there are legitimate claims to Israel having this place too. But at the same time, the amount of time that they occupied that land, just in the grand scale of things, wasn't that long to leave and then come back. And so it's just messy. But now, and the biggest part now, I think, for me, is the fact that now Israel has been established for about 2 generations worth of people there, 2 to 3 generations of people there. Now it's those people, that's their home too now. And this is where they are. And so there's plenty of room there, and plenty of resources there for all these people to live together. But when 2 different groups of people are excuse me, really driven by a needing to own a very specific rock, which is literally a boulder that's inside of the Temple Mount, or the Dome of the Rock. Now, it's hard for people to get along when they got to have a religion own that spot. And so they're you're not just going to easily have a bunch of people with a coexist Subaru bumper sticker rocking around there when they have the steep stuff. And so I think at this point in time, Israel has legitimate claims, both historically as well as now. Coming in and establishing themselves now, they have claims. And in the same way, Gazans and Palestinians have a historical claim and a right to the place. And then you have groups extremist groups like Hamas. There's some extremist groups on Israel's side of things as well that just don't allow for
sure Mossad,
for them to right. And even that's that's more that's the more government agency stuff. But then there's just there's extreme
there's extreme rabbinic and Judaic sects and cults.
I was
talking about
groups,
that
right?
with a couple of them too.
Right, and people who've come in and they're and Israel, while it's small, is similar to America in that you have all sorts of different groups of people. You've got your quote unquote right wing gun toters over to your left wing blue hairs, and you have all the people in between. You have people living in kibbutz trying to be just like a peaceful monk. You got people who are politically motivated, people who are religiously motivated, and so Israel itself has a unique culture. And then also for the Gazans specifically, the hard way forward that I'm seeing, which is difficult with the decisions that Trump is making, would be around the way what's the way forward now? Meaning prior to October 7th, 2023, I would, the things that Trump are saying, I would be like, absolutely not. These people have a right to this little chunk of ground they've really been relegated to and occupied within, even though they routinely stir up BS for their neighbors. But now, the hard thing now is finding a way forward after the amount of war that just happened in Gaza in a very small area. I mean, like, I'd say I do believe Gaza's been just about leveled at this point, and that's because the pictures I've seen from both sides.
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, what now? You can't put millions of people back in there. What's the right way forward now? I don't know what the answer is exactly, but it falls into kind of the same predicament that we have with the Israel-Palestine issue in general, which is, okay, who should get to live here and who should have to pay to rebuild it, all these things. And then, is it just going to be, is Trump's plan, like I've heard people say, just to, basically turn it into the, what was the term they were saying? Something like like Middle East Riviera or whatever, the Mediterranean Riviera, where it's just going to be, lined with high, are they coming in to build hotels, be a moneymaker for the already wealthy investors there? Or is it going to be actually something where they establish, are they going to build and establish a place for people to live? Either way, Gazans and Palestinians are going to get the short end of the stick on it. They're not going to rebuild the whole place and, put in new floors and move everybody back in there.
Well, all right. Before we go too much further,
mm-hmm.
Because I guess, I don't want to have the whole episode, just be this, but it's also
mm-hmm.
really good. I have, a couple questions, right? The first one being, is it correct to pretty much then say, like, the claim of Israel's being occupied or Palestine's being occupied, they're mm-hmm. under an occupation.
Mm-hmm.
Is that in the context of, like, if we look at it historically and like what
mm-hmm.
everything leads up to this moment in time, is that really a true statement, or is it more of these are pretty much two groups that both have claim
mm-hmm.
to the area?
Mm-hmm.
Some, like, Palestinians have claim to parts of Israel. Israel has claims to parts of Israel and Palestine, whatever, right? Like, mm-hmm. both of them have parts they want from the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what we're more looking at is just like two groups divided
mm-hmm.
that both have a right to the same location. And one is winning. I'm just going to be frank. One is winning.
Mm-hmm.
One is losing.
Mm-hmm.
And because that's what it seems like more to me from the outside, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is like, I almost see it very similarly to what was it? Russia's reacquirement of Crimea, yeah. Of, like, there's a lot of Russians that live in Crimea that think Crimea is Russian.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of Crimeans who also think it's
mm-hmm.
Russian. A lot of Crimeans and Russians who think it's Crimea.
Mm-hmm.
What it really comes down to is who's going to win
mm-hmm.
when both of them want that same thing, like the same thing, and they don't want to share, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that, like, I know this is like a very simplistic and brutalist
mm-hmm.
approach, but I
mm-hmm.
don't think we're looking at anything new here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is the same thing that's been going on in the sandbox for a very long time.
And
that's my assumption. That's how I kind of am, like, seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
That could be totally wrong, and I want you to tell me if it's wrong.
Well, I think the hardest thing about answering this whole thing would be, like, people's view of what's right and wrong is just different depending on your viewpoint of, like, throughout history and throughout now. There's people who would say colonialism, imperialism
mm-hmm.
isn't bad. People would say that's abhorrent. You're destroying cultures.
I'm not saying that's right or wrong morally.
Right.
I'm just trying to say, like, is that a right assessment of the picture?
Well, and that's what I would even say now, which is like, how did we get all of our borders that we have currently?
Yeah, exactly.
It was either through, in rare cases, buying land off of other countries who had taken it from somebody else in the past, or conquest. And so and then post-conquest, fighting for, back and forth, pushing the line this way and that way. And so on an individual, from taking it from a perspective of individual to individual, it's a lot easier to get into the gray areas of who has a right to life and happiness here, who has a right to their homeland. Then as you zoom up and get into 30,000 foot view mode, it's like, depending on your worldview, it's one perspective is, hey, we were here first and this is our land and we should have it. And that's what both people like. That's what both sides like. That's the argument they put forward first. Both sides make that same argument. We were here first. It's ours. It's like, well, what's your definition of first? It's like, no, finders keepers. Well, you left it. You left it. Now I found it. Okay. Now then there's the other perspective, which would be, I took this. I
took it first.
I took it, or I don't care if it was yours. Now it's mine. And that is a hard, it's a brutal, hard way to approach a situation. But from what I see from history, that is what happens. Right or wrong, what happens is someone comes and says, I took this, it's mine now. Almost like that scene from the Daniel Day-Lewis oil movie. What is that?
There Will Be Blood.
Yes. And,
your milkshake's over there. But I put my straws over here and I drink it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
And exactly. It's the I drink your milkshake.
Yeah.
And in that scene, you'd say, who's the bad guy? Oh, he is. Like, he's bad. Right?
Is he, though?
But at the same time.
I mean, he does bludgeon him with a bowling pin, but like,
his adopted son.
Not his adopted son. He bludgeons the corrupt preacher.
Yeah. Yep. But just so, all that to say, like, I kind of have my own personal opinions, and I can't even hardly like get them out clearly because they're so, in some ways, convoluted or like, or just like I've spent so much time thinking through them. But would be both sides in their own right and in their own mind have legitimate claim.
Yep.
And now it's like, so Gaza in particular, we have their kind of one of their ruling government was Hamas, and they attacked, and then they got the poop kicked out of them this time, big time, more than ever in the past.
Brutal.
And Hamas, who's responsible for the civilian deaths, the women, children, the displacement. Well, Hamas has to accept their hand in what they did to their own people.
Yep.
They made a decision. They didn't do it good enough to get the milkshake from the other guy. And now the other guy came in and just threw their milkshake against a dumpster. They didn't even steal the milkshake. They just crushed it. So Israel also has, as a government, has their own part to play, and so does Hamas. And so it's just like
it's like if I throw rocks at your house and then turn around and run into mine, I should not be surprised if you throw rocks through my window. I might, depending on how much I've upset you, like let's say I threw a rock and it went through your window and hit your kid or something, right? I shouldn't be surprised if you're kicking in my door.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And that's what a lot of people would say too, like the Hamas stuff, they'd be like, well, I threw rocks at your window and then you drove through my house with a bulldozer.
Yeah. And it's like, because I'm sick of, it wasn't like, it's like, you threw a rock through my window and it killed my dog. I'm driving a bulldozer through your house because you'll never live here again and you'll never be able to kill my next dog.
Right.
That's a simplification. I'm sure there's not a lot of people who like me referring to them as dogs.
And so I think that it is like, it's a matter of perspective. From a 30,000 foot view, I think it's not that difficult, but if we get into the lives of individuals, it gets very rough very fast.
It is. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I will say, Mick's personal opinion is that, if I was sitting with two individuals, right, it would be, I think you both have valid claims to here. Both of you have valid claims to this, to be here. I'm not going to say like to own it. I'm not going to say to build it or destroy it or, whatever. But I'm going to say you both have valid reasons to be present in this space and occupying it. If you can't agree on that, then you need to figure it out. And it's not like you need to, I'm telling you need to. It's like, that's just the natural result. And I would prefer it if they could just accept and shake hands and be like, yeah, we both have real reasons to be here. You do your thing, I'll do mine. But I know that's like incredibly oversimple, right?
Right, because then is that a two-state solution with a line down the middle and you live this side, that side versus like I don't think every other house?
I always thought that was ridiculous. I always thought there should just be one block of land and let it be a democratic representation.
Right. I agree from an American perspective, being that like because we are not.
We don't decide who gets to live in what house based on Democrat, Republican,
right,
or Christian, Muslim,
or something you don't even get to pick. Like Italian.
Oh,
or,
yeah.
Or if you're.
Well, we don't do that anymore.
Right.
We used to.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. But so like in this case, what the hard part here is let's say somebody like some big mediator comes in like America and says, all right, you two play nice. Get along, coexist together. Yeah. The hard thing is there's people working on both sides whose ultimate goal is to see the other group gone.
Annihilated, yeah.
And so in this case, because of power-wise, I'd say if the tides were turned in a lot of ways too, if the scripts were flipped on like who had the power in the population, it would be the same thing going on, except people would be like, college liberals would be waving a flag about free Israel. But the power, what's scary for me is the powerful player is Israel, and today, and they will like it. If the thing was, all right, everybody play nice, live together. Still in 50 years from now, there would be less Gazans, less Palestinians, less Arabs living there, through many different means, because there is an agenda and an ultimate goal to, to have it, and for Israel to be a Jewish state. I mean, you cannot be a citizen in Israel
without being Jewish.
Without like being Jewish in a lot of ways. And so, as far as there are some exceptions, but by and large, it's your blood in your veins. And so that's where the from the American perspective, we're like, wait, blood in your veins. Like we've kind of moved past a lot of that. But for them and for Palestinians or Arabs too, this is still a very strong, thing.
Yeah. And that's what I was going to say is like the big difference is like, yes, we have what we think should happen, right? We have what we prefer. Like, hey, you two both have equal claims, get along. And if you can't get along, figure it out, sort it out. The issue with that is that Israel is a religious government. Just like a lot of the other nations are Muslim governments of Islam, right? And so like the fact that it's a Jewish government and Palestine is a Muslim government, essentially I think kind of means like the real solution is both of them being dismantled into a non-religious separated government to take in its place, which I don't think that's our job either.
Right.
I'll say that, like, it's one of those things like where I don't think we have any role in it. Now I do think, like, I've heard the argument of like, well, you know, the Biden admin sent an insane amount of weapons and money over there to Israel. Those weapons and that money was put to use to level Gaza. So maybe we do have some responsibility to rebuild the buildings and offer aid and assistance. And I was like, you know what? I'm not even going to argue against that. I kind of think, like, I'll be honest, if like U.S. bombs were flying over, let's flip around.
Yeah.
Let's say if, you know, Russia gave some bombs to Mexico and Mexico was like, yeah, we're going to use these on the U.S. And we were the ones that provoked the war with Mexico. And then Russia's like, shit, those bombs really worked and wrecked the U.S. quite a bit. Hey, U.S., we feel kind of bad that we did that and they just annihilated you. We'd like to offer some aid relief. I'd be like, yeah, you better kind of pay up because you kind of have a little bit of liability here. So I don't know. I don't think it's our responsibility, but I can see where it's perhaps the right thing to do to offer that support.
Right. The hard thing, are we supporting it or are we
enforcing it?
Or are we like coming in and now it's like, we're taking both your milkshakes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? From a standpoint of, you know, America saying, all right, we're taking over Gaza. Gazans, you couldn't get your crap together. And Israel, you couldn't handle this either. So
sit down.
You know, yeah. Everybody sit down. We're going to come take care of this now. And profit, you know?
Yeah, you know, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if that's at all what plays out because we don't have a religious government. Our government's not a Christian government. And I don't think it should be either. I don't want a Christian state. I don't want a Christian nation. The idea of a Christian nation is oxymoron.
Yeah.
It's antithetical. Like the whole point of being a Christian is going out, and if you were living in a nation where everyone was Christian, there'd be nowhere else to go but out.
Yeah.
And like a lot of people I know, their immediate knee-jerk response is like, well, then you should quit your job and go to another country. I'm like, no, because I live in America. And America's not a Christian nation. And there's plenty of non-Christians around me for me to go out to and witness a disciple.
And there's a difference between saying, and I will say, we are a nation rooted in Judeo-Christian values. But that does not mean
moral law.
What we are. Yeah. And then, there was, and at the same time, though, how does the rest of the world see this when, like, Trump just stood up, like, something called, like, the Department of Faith or something? I mean,
it's not real. Come on. Is that real? I gotta look it up.
Look it up. It's hard because I'm
get off the Facebook page.
Exactly. So much of stuff's just coming off of memes. But it was something about the something of faith. All these people praying around him,
White House Faith Office.
Yeah.
Ordered the creation of the White House Faith, a new White House office. All right, I got to go to the Wikipedia and start going through this.
So we'll see if it's corroborated. You tell me if I'm right or wrong here, but basically what it appeared to me like was, basically establishing, a little bit of thinning up the differentiation between church and state. Lots of people praying over President Trump in the Oval Office, which I personally think is actually beautiful, if genuine or authentic. But then at the same time, I don't want to see Christianity and the name of Jesus weaponized, just like we've seen a couple other times throughout history. And so,
hold on. I will say this: I'm gonna stand that majority of the Crusades were good, and people get the wrong, incomplete perspective of the Crusades.
And I guess I'm even.
But I have seen it weaponized. You're talking about Nazis?
I'm talking about big and small examples. I could say indigenous people thrown into Christian schools, Spanish Inquisition, kind of dark
Manifest Destiny shit,
Dark Ages, Catholicism. What was the thing called where you'd pay your way out of purgatory? What were those called? The penances or something. But like that sort of like when Martin Luther wanted to separate out because the Rome and Christianity had become so tightly combined, and then you could go to now where you have someone like maybe Joel Osteen weaponizing the name of Jesus or God so that you can have a bigger house. And the Crusades too. And I don't think the Crusades were all bad either. I agree. I think they've gotten a bad rap over the years where you could go.
Like the Children's Crusade was just a tragedy. I'll say one? That. The Children's Crusade. Do you know that one?
I don't know about this.
Literally just a whole group of children that left Europe to go fight their own crusade and was blessed by the Pope. They all died well before they got to Constantinople. They had like no real adults with them.
That is...
And it was like thousands of children.
That is...
Okay, well, let's. You know what we should do? Let's just have like one episode where I just go through every crusade, because I think the Crusades are an unreal amount of history. Like the Crusades. Here's what's crazy: the Crusades and the Genghis Khan were happening at the same time,
and that's a lot of war.
That's a lot of war, and we've never seen a mobilization like that pre-industrial revolution.
Right.
Like that was the most unreal mobilization of forces in history, and it happened at the same time.
And I think we should go through the Crusades. I think that also the respect's got to be given to old Saladin.
Saladin, bro.
As far as some interesting tidbits I'll bring up when we talk about the Crusades too, about reverence towards Christianity too of Saladin. But which is kind of interesting. But
let me just say this too. I think we could go through this. I'm looking at the White House establishment of the establishment of the White House Faith Office.
Educate me.
Are you ready? We can go through it section by section. If you want. It's not super long, but it's like a good read.
I guess my main wonderment is it like all faiths or just
it's
Christianity?
All faiths.
Okay.
It's all faiths. It specifically outlines several times that it is about all faith and communities.
And what is it? Why? What's it?
Yeah.
Is it the next? Is it the combining of the like Rome and the Pope and what's the purposes? I'd be curious of, because
the purpose outlined in the beginning, right? Out before the sections, right? The preamble of it all is to assist faith-based entities, community organizations, and houses of worship in their efforts to strengthen American families, promote work and self-sufficiency, and protect religious liberty. So that's the goal.
Now that verbiage, I feel like I could get behind the outline. You know what I mean? And then you got but then the hard thing is...
Let me dive in.
Yeah, get into the
Section 1 policy. These entities, faith-based ones, their organizations, houses of worship, they serve individuals, families, communities through means that are different from those of government, and with capacity and effectiveness that often exceeds that of government. These organizations lift people up, keep families strong, solve problems at the local level. Executive branch wants faith-based entities, community organizations, and houses of worship to the fullest extent permitted by law to compete on a level playing field for grants, contracts, programs, and other federal funding opportunities. Which is important, bro, because just recently it came out that USAID was funding a ton of like left-leaning liberal like Christian podcasts and Jewish podcasts.
Oh yeah, and
there was like a Christian podcast with these two pastors. They had gotten over $500,000 of support from USAID.
Just spitting out heresy.
Pretty liberal, heretical stuff. You know what I mean?
And since we, I guess if you're listening to the episode before this, where we talked briefly about USAID, USAID, as I guess was supposed to be called, whatever they're saying. I don't know if they're walking back the aid part or not, but since it's just an acronym, as we learned as I learned last time. But man, stuff has been coming out still. It's not stopped.
Unreal what that money was going to.
And that this was, I think USAID was basically just the new CIA as far as their ability to psyop and control. Because there were certain things that happened where the CIA couldn't do as much as they used to be able to do. like during, Vietnam and Cold War era assassinations, but then and that stuff was kind of kiboshed. But
anyways,
USAID had no, basically, it's not had very much oversight, or like they can do a lot of things just without the president saying so. That's all.
It was really, they had a lot of discretion on what they sent money to. Efforts of faith-based communities and the other organizations, they are really important for revitalizing communities, strengthening the family, and the federal government welcomes opportunities to partner with such organizations through innovative, measurable, and outcome-driven initiatives. Committed to ensuring that all executive departments and agencies honor and enforce the Constitution's guarantee of religious liberty. This sounds good to me so far. Amendments to executive orders. There's a couple amendments here. It's released about specific executive order references throughout years. Substituting White House Faith Office for White House Office of Faith-Based and Community Initiatives, or White House OFBCI, each time it appears in those orders. So I think there's already a White House Faith Office in existence. It appears to be from previous departments and items, and that now like there's an executive order put by Bush, I guess, equal protection of laws for faith-based and community organizations. There was one from Obama, fundamental principles and policymaking criteria for partnerships with faith-based and other neighborhood organizations. So it seems like these are all executive orders that are being amended or included in this new office established.
Yeah.
But anyways, here's some ones. I'm just going to go past the sections and just go into like the, to the extent permitted by law, the office shall, from time to time, consult with and seek information from experts and various faith and community leaders identified by the White House Faith Office, including those from outside the federal government and those from state, local, and tribal governments. That's pretty cool. They will be focused on including a broad range of areas in which faith-based entities, community organizations, and houses of worship operate, including protecting women and children, strengthening marriage and family, lifting up individuals through work and self-sufficiency, defending religious liberty, combating anti-Semitic, anti-Christian, and additional forms of anti-religious bias, promoting foster care and adoption programs in partnership with faith-based entities, providing wholesome and effective education, preventing and reducing crime, and facilitating prisoner reentry, promoting recovery from substance use disorder, and fostering flourishing minds. They get to make recommendations to the president through the assistant to the president of domestic policy. Convene meetings with representatives from the Centers for Faith and other representatives from across agencies as appropriate. Advise implementation throughout federal government of those aspects of administration's policy agenda aimed at enabling faith-based entities to better serve families and communities. So it seems like it's just pretty much going through over and over how to coordinate and consult, and essentially just like having a panel of religious advisors across various religions. You know what I mean?
For sure. But then like the little devil's advocate on there being like the
Satanist who gets to be on the panel.
No, well, God.
Personally, I don't think you should listen to any of these guys.
No, like let's see, if I was to put myself in some other shoes, while you read that, what were the two that got mentioned by name?
Anti-Semitism, anti-Christian, and other anti-religious biases.
Right. So so number one, an ally. Number two, the main faith going on in the country. Number three, the token phrase to keep everybody happy. Inclusivity, just to keep, so, and meaning to back to kind of what we were talking before with this Israel situation being, okay, so, is this the fourth crusade? You know, and just in a way of, a white collar, the white collar fourth crusade of going, okay, I'm doing things like establishing my faith-based office around Jews and Christians. And here's the deal. Personally, I like that. All right. You know, I'm pro anti-Semitism.
I won't like it if it's just Jews and Christians. I'll say that. I want government to hear from everybody because the government serves everybody, not just Jews and Christians.
Right. But then if I'm going like super personally to Pat, I'm winning at that statement.
It honestly feels good to win for once.
But so, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, just to be say, like,
Yeah.
Like, okay, yeah, that caters straight to me. All
No,
right.
I get what you're saying. I don't view it as a crusade-like thing yet because I haven't seen a call to a war yet.
Right. And when I'm saying Pat likes what he's seeing is not the Trump taking Gaza piece, the America,
piece.
the faith-based thing saying Jews and Christians, you're protected. And I'm like, hey, I win at that, So yeah, and so
I guess I don't see Trump taking Gaza yet. Like, I don't see it as a hostile takeover of the U.S. government occupying and taking Gaza yet. I see it as, from all I understand and from what I've read and heard so far, it's both of you need to sit down, continue to play nice, because we're waiting to, if you break the rules, we don't get the hostages back. And if you break the rules, I have to slap your pee-pee, and I'm not going to help rebuild anything.
For sure.
You know what I mean? And it's like, that's what it honestly feels like. It feels like someone came in and was like, enough's enough.
And yeah, and I think the enough's piece is the part where, like, I've talked to some people about this and people who are heavily invested in, like, this region, and they're just like, and people who would generally be like maybe Palestinian leaning in this thing and just been like not offended by the Trump stuff. Now, lots of Palestinian leaning people, like pro-Palestinian people, are offended by it, but like there's other people who kind of like the realist piece being like, all right, yeah, big.
It's a ceasefire.
Daddy's got to step in, and it's time to spank some butts and fix clean up the room.
Because let's be honest, if Little Pat 1 was dogging on Little Pat 2, because Little Pat 2, did something to Little Pat 1. I'm trying to think of an equivalent, but like stomped on his toes or broke some Legos or whatever.
Oh yeah.
You'd probably let Little Pat 1 do a little bit of correcting to Little Pat 2.
Right.
And then you'd probably be like, oh, he's like actually hurting him. This is excessive. Both of them are sitting down and breaking it up.
It's a great example where, so in my house, there is a rule about spitting on people.
Wow. That's insane. You have children.
Yeah. Because, and I'm trying to grow men here, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so the rule is if someone spits on, I'd say this, the first rule is if you spit on somebody, expect to get hit. And then the second rule is if somebody spits on you,
you can hit them.
You're allowed to hit them. Now, I'm trying to also, we are at an age of a lot of like, sticking your tongue out and.
Is that spitting?
Is that spitting or the, there's a,
That's a spit.
Yeah, exactly. So I come in to the house last night. Babysitter's there. I'm coming in, and as I'm coming in, I hear screaming, and I hear some hitting, some bareback open hand slapping, and I hear the
5 stars,
the kind of timid babysitter being like, "Oh, do not hit,
boys.
Why are you doing that? Do not do that." And then I just come in with my boots.
Oh, bro, there's nothing.
And they stand up, and littlest Pat goes, "He spit at me." And I say, and so I look at, I'm like, all right. And then the other one runs over, little Pat, and he's like, "He said he was going to kill me." So now we've just broken like 2 major rules, which first of all, that means one, we had a not quite 3-year-old saying, "I'm going to kill you." And then we had big brother spitting on little brother.
Yeah. This is great. This is great.
And so
this is some real East of Eden shit going down.
So I said, you go to your room.
Yeah.
And you go to the corner, because they share a room. So you can't both send them to their rooms. Yeah. And, we worked it out. We figured out who did what first. I did not physically discipline them. We had to talk about it. But I was just like, it was. Now, we're boiling down a, 70-year to 2,000 to 6,000 year problem to a to one instance of a
fight of two siblings,
of a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. But we had to separate them out and talk about it, come together, forgive each other, and then move on. Both people had made offenses. Both people had legitimate gripes about what the other had done to them, and had to work it out, and had to have some other influence in there. And it's like, and someone who's maybe hard Israel supporter or hard Palestinian supporters, doesn't like to hear the way I'm talking about it, but
I'll cover you, bro.
But both sides got to do it differently. That's why the thing is, like, I started off by defending the Gazan side of things, and not defending terrorism, whatever, all this stuff, right? But I'm defending. I can defend that side, or if someone comes at me from the other side, I can defend the other side too, and I can, and that being because both sides, honestly, sorry to hear it, but both of you aren't doing it right. Yeah, and that's like the hard truth that both sides are just pointing fingers instead of like this acceptance of, hey, he spit in my face and he said he was going to kill me, and then we started going at it, right? Which, hey, in this house, if you spit at somebody, you're going to get hit. And threatening to eliminate somebody permanently,
we don't take that lightly,
as maybe one group has done to the other.
Yeah,
we're not taking that lightly either.
Yeah.
And so both parties, this is hard, both parties have proven themselves incapable of governing this part of the land.
Well, this is why I've said from the first time we talked, I don't support one or the other. I empathize with both. And if you recall, my support where I stood was like, I don't think we should be sending weapons to Israel. I think we should be offering like relief aid, triage aid, right? To both sides. Because honestly, if we had our people doing triage in Palestine, on Gaza, and some Israel strikes took out some of ours, I bet the strikes would stop real quick.
That's true.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I'm just saying, like, now, yeah, that means you got to put American lives in harm's way. But I'm just saying, if we're going to be offering aid, I think that's the aid we should be doing. Because no one's butt puckers up more than when there's an American in the crosshairs. And everyone's like, do I really want to do this? How sure am I want to do this? Anyways, that's where I've always stand. And, Pat, to your statement there, I could care less what anyone thinks about, no, you need to be like, if you're Christians, you need to be hardline Israel no matter what to the day you die. And no, if you're Christians, you need to take the plea of the underdog or the people being occupied or victimized here, like hardline Palestinian. And I'm like, look, bro, I'm not taking either. Both of them temporary, like friggin' dust in the wind. It's blown away. And if there's anything that I could see like coming out of this conflict is that like we're getting closer to the end of it. Now let me just say this too. Let's totally pivot.
Right. All right.
With the latest things that Trump's doing, are you thinking Trump's Antichrist? Because that's the latest thing that a lot of people are like wrote in their mouths. They're like, he's the Antichrist. And I'm just like, all right, guys, come on, freaking relax. Like, listen to yourselves before you get all worked up over a nothing sandwich.
Right. Which, it's funny because
now maybe I'm saying that to you.
Yeah. What I will say is that it's the Christ left us some real catch-22s on
and if they're the Antichrist,
on the Antichrist bit being be vigilant for the end of times, be looking out for it.
Yeah.
But he will deceive like all of you, and you're all going to love him.
Yeah.
And you won't know when I'm coming back. So it's this catch-22 being, throughout all of since Jesus ascended, right? We could say his followers or people who've studied him would say, "Oh yeah, the end's coming next year." Like I heard that Caesar is tearing down the temple.
Yeah,
that's the worst thing I've ever seen. Or lots of history. Okay. Oh, Hitler, that guy. It's the end of times. This is horrible. The whole world's at war.
I would have 100% thought Hitler was the Antichrist and the world was over.
Right. Yeah, it'd be like, yeah. So yeah, and justifiably so. And then you could march it down this, that, and the other, and then the pickle being, he said, look for it, and he said, you're not gonna know.
Yeah.
What am I supposed to do with that? I don't know, but but I will say, I don't think Trump is the Antichrist. I think that because then there's.
Are you sure?
Well,
he was injured in the head. What if he says he's rebuilding the temple? Then what will you think?
That's where what I will say is anytime a major political figure gets involved in the Holy Land area, it's worth investigating and being vigilant around what's happening here. Whether we're talking the end of it all or just big world events coming our way. And so I don't think Trump is loved enough and beloved enough to be the Antichrist.
His approval rating's gotten higher, though. He's at a 70%. Isn't that crazy? Trump at a 70% approval rating?
It is pretty crazy. I mean, that is insane.
I don't even think I approve of 70% of what that guy says or does, but I'm like, yeah, that's pretty nuts.
And for how much he seems like people think, for how much people scream about how he's the worst person to ever walk the earth, I'm like, dang. Yeah. Like 70's a lot. So going off of those stats, hey, you might be careful. Lots of people love him. A great deceiver. I don't know. Elon Musk. I don't think so.
Too autistic to deceive.
Well, and but I was thinking about this the other day for myself. I was going, okay, what is, as far as, all the end time stuff goes, there is a lot around it. And there's some people who think you can usher it in, and some people who are just like, yeah, you got to just wait,
Bro, people who are like, we can force things to occur because God's told us enough that we can force it. I'm like, where do you get off? Where do you get off that you think you could remotely? That's like, to me, I'm like, okay, if you believe in God, you believe he created the universe as it is. Let's start small. Move the earth off its axis. And if you can do that, let's move up to like displacing a sun from its solar system. All right. Once you do that, let's try to bring about God's will. You know what I mean? Like, because
right.
I don't, it's so immovable to me.
Which I agree with. And then it'd be like, well, then I'm just never going to pray for anything in my life.
Well, then I'd be like, well, then you don't read scripture.
Right.
The scripture says the prayers of a righteous man are heard.
Right. And so then it'd be like, all right, well, I'm righteous and I want you to come back.
Well, he is.
Yeah, no, for sure. But no,
let's dance, baby.
No, definitely. But I think that every generation has had people who think the end is near, and the end is always nearing, because it's kind of the same thing where people will be like, everybody's
always
for an individual basis going, everybody's basically just. Everybody's going to die and everybody's getting closer to dying. That's it's like, yeah, okay, that's true. But are we talking for the humanity? We're talking 2 years or 2 billion years, like, I don't know. Yeah. But
all right.
Trump.
Go ahead.
If I was going to pick someone who is existing right now, I mean, the thing about Elon that freaks me out is like the Neuralink stuff and his power. But at the same time, I don't think the Antichrist is around right now. Neuralink, I think, is freaky. Connecting all of everything, basically, funny. Some people thought that barcodes were the mark of the beast.
Yeah.
Have you been to Hobby Lobby? Have we talked about this on here?
No. But I remember
Right.
I did read about when barcodes first came around and people thought.
Have you been to Hobby Lobby lately?
Not in like the last 2 months.
All right. Well, that's funny. I've been there like once in the last like 7 years, but that's fine. 2 months. All right. So you probably noticed.
I love Hobby Lobby.
Okay, but so when you leave there, is there a barcode or is there just a price and they punch it in and then they tell you what you owe?
Yeah.
Hobby Lobby, Christian based organization, barcodes came out. They're like, we're not doing it. That's Mark of the Beast shit. Nope. We're just sticking with our thing. What's crazy to me is from a business owner perspective, I'm like, how? They don't have any SKUs. They have no SKUs. They just have prices on things.
Yeah, bro.
How do you keep track of inventory at the end of the day?
Oh, come on, man. They don't keep track of inventory.
Yeah, I know.
You've been to fucking Hobby Lobby?
I know, but that's what I'm like, oh my God. But anyways, like they're like no barcodes.
Here's how I know they don't. I grabbed the wrong size of a piece I needed for airbrush. And I was like, oh crap, this is the wrong size. And the lady had already entered it in. She's like, just go swap it out. That's how I know there's no track of inventory.
Yeah. No, for sure. And so, but even those people, to be so extreme as to be like, barcodes are the mark of the beast, people like cell phones are the mark of the beast, credit cards are the mark of the beast. Like, okay, Neuralinking yourself?
That's kind of...
We're getting some...
That's kind of up there.
Like, compared to barcodes, we're getting close.
I would say this, though. Imagine this. Neuralink.
Yeah.
Let's say majority of the world has it.
Yeah.
I think Neuralink is the most likely way the whole world could witness Christ's return at the same time.
Yeah, if you're limiting his glory. I'm just kidding.
Sure. If he's returning as a single person and a single place,
right.
I think that's a way to do it, right? Because for a long time, people were like, how are they going to do it? And then there was like live television. And everyone was like, wow, this could be it. Like this could be the technology. And then it became like instant live viewing on your phone.
Yeah.
Now Neuralink in your freaking brain, you could just view through your eyeballs.
This is true.
So all that
he works all things.
Yeah, he works on all things.
So
he works on all things, brother.
But what I'm saying is like, so for the good of those who love him. So that evil ass Neuralink, he might use it. I don't know.
I honestly though, what if Neuralink turns out to not be evil at all?
I know, it just freaks me out.
Would you still do this podcast if I got it so it could fix my eyeballs?
Well, the problem is at that point, what would we even be talking about? You'd be just spitting out facts, and you'd just be everything like, and I'd be like, what are we talking about here?
That'd be cool.
You know, like it's just like you're just like ripping out all this stuff.
I just think it'd be unreal if
we could get rid of Craig.
We could finally get rid of Craig. We have to do something about him. He's starting to stink. We have to change his clothes, put another bucket of water down the hole.
That's for real.
Okay, all right. Here's some things that I was talking to these guys, right? And some of these guys are like total kooky heads, and you know who you are, and you know I love you. But some of them did say some things that were like, hey, you want to know some crazy shit, though? Because I will say this. I do believe that, unfortunately, when you have a religion take the place of a government, and then you have a very dangerous environment for immoral individuals to justify immorality because it falls under some,
they can justify it through that religion.
They can try to force it through the lenses of that religion, right? Which is, of course, what we saw with, Catholicism and, the Holy Roman Empire for sure, right? We still see that today now with the Pope and like how divided the Catholic Church is over the most recent Pope's decrees. But, I mean, there are some evil shit that Israel has done in the past. And I won't say Israel. Mossad and Israel's government has done. And they've done it through trying to use Judaism and the, divinity of being God's elected as justification. And here's something that's crazy. I was checking this out. Did you know, apparently, Jeffrey Epstein on more than one occasion told people he was a Mossad asset, and that he was essentially recruited by Ghislaine's father, who was a Mossad agent, and that the whole Maxwell and Epstein kind of process of getting people and, having them commit lewd acts with children was so Mossad would have blackmail on, powerful people and senators and stuff around the world.
Yeah. I did not know about, I didn't know about that piece, but I'm not,
and here's what I'm saying. I'm not saying the Jews are creating kiddie porn, right? But I am saying, like, if that is true, which we will hopefully find out in this, this presidency, but if that's true, that certainly is a dangerous place to put your people as a whole who call themselves, under the name of Judaism, right? And you could do insane damage, irreparable damage that won't be healed or forgotten for perhaps decades. You know what I mean? Like, because it's enough for, like, Catholicism can hardly really do anything other than attempt to ignore the essentially shaming of how many pedophiles are in the cloth, right? And yes, it's a minority for sure, right? I would not be surprised if the amount of pedophiles that make up the Catholic leadership is sub 1%,
or like equal to percentage of pedophiles in general.
In general, yeah,
right.
But it's just that those individuals, because it happens and it's happened enough, that it becomes something very difficult for that whole people group to overcome.
Oh yeah.
And if that came out, bro, like, if that was true, that would do so much damage to those people as a whole. You know what I mean?
Who already have a lot of haters. Yeah.
There's another one that I found. This is more just interesting. Satanism started by a guy who his parents were immigrants from Israel, and he was born in Chicago, but his name was Anton LaVey, and he started the Church of Satanism.
The modern Church of Satanism.
Yeah, like in 1940s.
Oh yeah, because there's some older.
Well, yeah.
Right,
no,
right.
I'm talking like he's known as like the modern father of the Church of Satanism in the contemporary
on their website,
on Wikipedia and stuff like that. Yeah. The other guy though who co-did it with him was a director of psyops in the U.S. Army, and he was the co-founder of Satanism. Isn't that bonkers?
That's the crazy thing about what you're saying.
It's not surprising.
I didn't know about it, but it's just like, oh yeah.
Now, what I'm saying, I'm not saying that Jews created Satanism. I'm just saying that guy happened to come from a Jewish family, and he denounced Judaism and all that when he made the Church of Satanism, modern Satanism.
But his parents came from modern day Israel.
Yeah.
Right. And we have American psyop guy.
That might be a mistake. They might have fled and immigrated to the U.S. during that time.
Because 40s, that's pre-Mossad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If it was like,
he wasn't a Mossad agent. I'm not saying he was Mossad.
Right. But I was like, if it was like, okay, I was wondering if it was like further on, like,
it's just ironic.
Yeah. It's interesting. And the Epstein stuff, because Robert Maxwell, he was his name was actually something else. He had like a super European name. Ghislaine Maxwell's dad had a super European name, and he was in the army, then he fled, and then he changed his name, and then he got his kind of prominence, and then was essentially it's widely believed a Mossad agent. And had a mysterious death himself.
Yeah, he just was found floating in the ocean.
Yeah.
So his name was Ian Robert Maxwell, born Jan Ludwig Hyman Benjamin Hock.
Yeah, that one.
Czechoslovakian-born British media proprietor, politician, and fraudster.
Yeah.
After escaping Nazi occupation.
What I've always wondered about is, like, could I become such a stinker that a government wants to employ me for lots of money? Because like there's these people like him, Epstein, but then you could go through the line of drawing a blank on just others who, like, or in general, like CIA assets and people who are just like, they're just, governments are just employing like the stinkeriest people because they're in the know, they're cutthroat, they've got information,
morals,
they'll lie,
they'll do
no
whatever.
morals, all the way down to like your on the streets fentanyl dealer is your informant, all the way up to like CEOs of Fortune 500s are involved in like the CIA. You're like, okay, this like. Anyways, I don't think I could. When I've wondered about it briefly in the shower, when I have my shower thoughts, I'm like, I couldn't make it happen.
Neither could I.
For the life of me.
Here's why I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
You gotta sleep with people.
Huh. I'm not good at that.
You must be good at it. You did it right 3 times at least.
That's all it takes is 3 times. Yeah, my goodness.
Yeah, no, that was the one thing I always saw in all like in the movies, right? And I'm like, damn, bro, all these CIA chicks and all these CIA dudes have to sleep with people, and sometimes they're freaking gross, you know. And it's like that like you see the CIA agent asset, and she's sleeping with some really fat Eastern European dude, and he's like, you know, some corrupt politician and some, you know, former USSR nation.
Yeah.
And the dude sleeps with like 10 prostitutes a day or like a week, right? And it's like, not on your life am I getting an STD for the freaking mission. Like, I can't think of anything important enough that I get an STD.
That's true, but also I think that
if they're like, you have to stop, you have to get the nuclear launch codes, you must sleep with them to know what the codes are to stop like World War III. By the way, he has gonorrhea. I'd be like, fuck it. Fuck it. We all go out together.
Call Fred.
Smoke him if you got him. Yeah.
We know Fred's into that.
Yeah.
Call Fred. Yeah, no, but I mean, and I think even besides just the general mindset of that, the person who can do all that, I can't do all that. Not even close. Not even close.
I'm more of a, you know, who's the actor that plays Michael Scott again? Steve Carell.
Steve Carell.
I'm more of a Steve Carell and Get Smart kind of spy agent.
Yeah.
Like still a virgin at 40. Just recently lost 100 pounds.
And just having a lot of information in your head and getting lucky. Yeah, I like it. Yeah. That movie is great, though.
That movie's a good one.
It's a good one. I watched it. Mace Windu hadn't seen it. We watched it like a month ago.
It's good.
And it was just made me think, where'd the PG-13 movies go?
The good ones.
The PG-13ers.
The real good ones.
I think those are
They died with Marvel.
Yeah. And and kind of like Gaffigan. Jim Gaffigan, as far as comics go, you know, like, no, I'm not putting him up there with like the greats, but just being like,
he became, I think he became too political.
Well, yeah, but I mean like old school Gaffigan, meaning like I could watch this with my grandma.
Oh yeah,
and it's real good.
Yeah,
you know that's all, you know, for movies. Just like, hey, I want to watch this with my grandma. I'm a 7-year-old, but no, yeah, I think for when it comes to, we covered so many things, mostly. You know, we're talking about the human condition and how we have this thing going on, which is huge powers, huge big groups of people, and then all the way down to your individuals who are to, you know, make a decision to, you know, whatever, sleep with the asset over to the individual who's doesn't know where they're going to sleep that next night because governments are like
I could be that. I could do that if people were like, grow a beard out. You need to be you know, a questionably Caucasian or Arab man sleeping in the streets, panhandling for money with your little monkey.
Yeah,
I'd be like, deal.
Yeah,
I can do that for years. Just don't make me sleep with anyone.
Yeah, I know.
I'm only gonna kiss my wife.
No, for sure. And then, but I was kind of talking about like the Gazan who can't find, like, they got nowhere to sleep that night.
Oh,
you know, just like,
I see now.
Right, so like,
now I've made it a joke, and I've totally disenfranchised and undermined the moment.
No. But I was just talking about how we have what we're dealing with here is some just like.
I legitimately thought you just meant like if the CIA wanted me to be homeless.
Right. No, I could see where you could. I was bringing it all the way back to an hour and 40 minutes ago. You know, it's like
okay.
But the like with we're dealing with big old ass governments and individual people. Individual people are part of the problem too. They're making individual decisions at high levels, right? And so, I think it is scary. Some of the stuff that Trump's saying, I think, is scary and hurtful and nerve-wracking for people. And in the very same token, it's been a year and a half since this war started. This specific war, not even speaking to a whole litany of other
conflict
issues and conflict. And so we'll see how that goes over there. He's bitten off a lot, and there's what 200 executive orders, right, to get into.
I think this is all a distraction, so it's a lot less of a big deal when we get Greenland.
Yeah, no kidding.
Which I'm honestly like, if we get Greenland, buying land, bitches. I'm buying land
in Greenland.
Hell yeah! Why do you think we'd buy Greenland?
Oil,
baby.
Yeah. Oil, and you can nuke Russia real fast.
We can nuke Russia real fast from Alaska.
That's true.
It's faster from Alaska than it is Greenland.
I don't know. I was looking at the map. You can get the pointy top of Greenland. You can get over the top real quick.
That's not how the Earth moves. Earth goes east, like the reason the sun rises east to west, right? It's because the Earth moves towards the east. And so it's shorter to go from Alaska and let the rotation of the Earth
let it get to us.
Like let the rotation of the Earth accelerate your rocket.
Coriolis stuff.
If you go from Greenland, it's actually harder to go up over the top of the Earth, which it is. It's like less the distance, right? But you're fighting like 2 dimensions of movement, right? Going up and over as well as a spiral.
That's true.
And it'd be easy to be off by a little bit. Now, no one's up there. So it's like, okay, if you miss. Only Santa and his workshop's up there.
No kidding. I guess oil, oil makes sense.
You just gotta, it's literally probably going to be one of those things. If we get Greenland, it's going to be one of those, like, everyone's going to be able to buy like 6 acres, and like the lucky 1 in 100 that buys that land will have some that's going to have like oil or like where the pipeline's going to run through. Dude, I swear, like if it's something silly like 6 acres for 10 grand, hell yeah. Hell yeah, bro. Then I'll just go out there and, we'll drop little shipping containers out there and build a little shipping container house.
I flew over Greenland once, and I was terrified.
Why? Just open snowy land?
It's mountainy, snowy, just like nothingness for a very long time. I was like, holy smokes, this is like no wonder. Like the classic thing where you learn, like, was it Eric the Red or whoever came from Iceland and like named it, or Leif Erikson or whichever
named it Greenland to throw off people from his treasure.
Well, I heard that he named it that to get people to come with him the next time. Like, hey, like come to Greenland.
That's probably true.
But like leave Iceland, and come to Greenland. And so they went from Iceland, which isn't nearly as bad as Greenland. And they get to Greenland, they're like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
But,
true.
But I flying over it, I was like, I just saw the empty vastness, and I felt tiny in myself. But I guess if it gives you some oil shares, not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Not a bad investment plan. 50,000 people live in Greenland.
Yeah. And it's like 45 of those are in this one town.
And it's giant. But then you like zoom in on Google Earth on Greenland, and you're like, oh, that's why there's only 50,000. There's only like 50,000 places to live.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, hey Ken, thanks for joining us. Appreciate you. This episode became primarily an episode on how things are wrapping up in Israel and Palestine, and that's okay because it makes sense. It's kind of like these things come in threes, right? So that's a good thing.
Yeah. Yep. And I think we'll see some. I mean, over the next couple months, years, we got to see some. There's going to be stuff changing over there.
Yeah, it'll be developing, but hopefully this is the conclusion of this conflict.
Yep.
This ceasefire holds.
Yep, because I originally, remember what my original estimate was on this war?
No.
I was like, they're cleaning it up in like 3 weeks.
What did I say?
I don't remember.
All right, I'll listen to it.
I don't know if you threw one out there or not. You might have said longer. And but,
I hope I was right just to be right and you wrong.
Yep. But it's lasted quite a long time.
Yeah, well, hey, again, thanks for joining us, folks. We appreciate you. Leave comments, like, subscribe, all that stuff. Tell us how wrong we are. Honestly, we prefer you to just, leave reviews on Spotify and then like comment on YouTube with why we suck or whatever, stuff like that. Interesting enough, there's a couple people who I saw left comments and then the comments got deleted. Did you notice that?
I deleted one comment.
Oh, you did? Okay, all right.
It was for a guy. It was a bot. I know you're trying to wrap up the show, but it was for a bot that was pointing people towards like this book a guy wrote about the female orgasm.
Hell yeah.
And
I'm not talking about that.
And
but
it was a scam. It doesn't work. Anyways, deleted that comment. Bad information from that guy.
Bro, dude, that's funny.
So there might have been other comments that, I don't know, that went down. I don't know.
No, there was just some more stuff that someone like that were on other videos, and I can't tell if the people deleted them or if YouTube was like, that's too not PC.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But anyways, we appreciate y'all. Thanks for joining us. And Pat.
Till next time. Thanks for tuning in. If you love this episode, drop us a review. If you have qualms or comments, leave us a voicemail on our website. While you're there, check out our latest news, merch, and deals from our sponsors. Till next time, Ken.